right. Pleasure to see everybody here again. My name is Matthew Spremulli. I am from Autodesk Research, and I'm happy to talk to you guys today about what we're doing, some of our innovations in the media and entertainment space. First off, I just want to acknowledge thank you to Jan and the entire organizing committee for putting on this really special event. It's our second time here. As you can see, last year we brought a research prototype around intuitive character animation and motion capture recording with virtual reality. We have since taken that prototype and done other things with it, but we brought it here as a piece of technology. It's called Project Reframe, and we had a couple of winners with it, which was exciting to see. And we also came with our product friends last year, Flow Studio, which I'll talk briefly about, but there are a lot of details on this inside of the Discord for those of you that have access. So, Autodesk Research, what even is it? This is our general landing page where we talk about a lot of different technology that we're building, not just for media and entertainment. It's primarily actually in the architectural design and manufacturing space. So if you're curious about that, maybe taking your ideas from screen into real world with props or something, you might find that interesting. But you'll see that we have a number of different disciplines of strengths, like scientists, artificial intelligence researchers, applied engineers, and we all work on these very targeted industry research areas. So in the architecture space, we have 3 of these areas, some of which it's a little dark, but you're seeing at the bottom kind of like carbon sequestration, net zero buildings, all the way up to how people might feel inside of the space. On the product design and manufacturing side, it's everything from performance-aided design, from things like flow analysis and shape optimization, down to how robots could automatically assemble something once you've designed it. And then you have me in the media and entertainment space. So I'm going to wear 2 hats in this presentation, a little bit of research, a little bit of product, and I do have to flash this safe harbor statement. Some people may or may not know what this is. Basically, this is just me telling you, do not make a purchasing decision for our tools based on what you hear from me, because some of these innovations may not make it into product, like the VR tool that we had last year. It was cannibalized and used for other different technology that we have. But in the media and entertainment space, which comprises about 15 to 20% of our business, it is primarily focused on film and game, and I'm going to talk a little bit more on the film side of things, so film and television. And to kind of leverage some of the industry giants, we like to map our own research efforts onto what is being done professionally. We lean our tools between both creator and individuals to the professional, and we try to understand the professional as a gold star standard for what people might be trying to achieve. Like in the comment around premium content, feature-length films, we see ourselves kind of in that space at the moment. And so we align ourselves with these 2 major buckets of how workflows are done, pre-production and production. Of course, there's post, which is where a lot of cleanup and things happen, but when Pixar makes a movie, this is how they do it. There are these 2 distinct phases, and we like to map a lot of our tools onto these workflows. So the first of 4 micro presentations I'll give you, these 4 innovations that we have, is squarely centered in the animation space. It is a plugin for Maya, if you've heard of the tool. It is called Motion Maker, and was a big project that our team rapidly accelerated from research to product last summer. We're bringing, again, the technology here to the hackathon. We saw some really interesting submissions using Flow Studio, and I'll talk about that. There's a tool that we've been working on, a similar kind of canvas tool called Atelier, and it was demonstrated at CHI conference, the Computer Human Interaction Conference, just last week in Barcelona. So there was a lot of fanfare around that on Reddit and a number of different creator community hubs. And then the last one I'll mention is story arc. And story arc basically covers a number of different parts of the pipeline. But I think what you're seeing as I'm presenting this is that each of them cover different zones. And you can see that Autodesk is starting to become more comfortable moving upward into the pre-production space, which typically we've only been in the production space. It's like color gradations, editing pixels, rendering tools, animation tools, and now we're starting to think about supporting people all the way up into script. So Motion Maker is the first one. We'll go in reverse order. Motion Maker, it was formerly known as Project Nemico or Neural Motion Control for character performance. Basically what it does is that it allows you as a user in 3D space to have super simple, high-level controls for a 3D rigged character to drive a performance with something as simple as a couple of clicks and some keyframes and some layers of activities. That's what you're seeing on the bottom there, telling it to go from jump to run to trot to sit, all in very 3D editable space. It was used in Wednesday Season 2 for the werewolf character. We are in talks with other premier customers for using it in other feature-length films. And the way that it basically works is that you can create super simple performances off the fly. This took a matter of, I think, 2 minutes in total to set those keyframes and have the motion generated. It's not only used for dogs, even though that seems to be all I've shown so far. It does humans and fantasy characters. And we're pretty excited that we just released 2 weeks ago an equestrian model as an animation archetype. So how does it actually work? So this is, Autodesk has two things going on simultaneously with artificial intelligence. We are making our own models, and then we leverage, like what you've seen, existing models for understanding new kinds of workflows. This is an example of the former, of where we are building our own models. In this case, it was a very small neural architecture model. And like an LLM being able to predict the next letter, this basically is just predicting the next frame in an animation sequence. It was trained on motion capture data and on keyframe animation for what you see out of the box. And data for us is really important for that intellectual property, legal, and moral stance. And if there's going to be anything that is released, at least in North America or Europe, there's high sensitivity to having data provenance. So when we were training our models, we went out and commissioned the data ourselves. This is us at Animatric Stage in Vancouver, working with handlers and actors to be able to collect the data for ourselves, to train it on our own models, and everybody signed off with it, dog prints included. So we went back in order to do a horse shoot, and that's where the data is out of the box on that. And this is us doing a little quick sizzle video of being able to show how these horses may work in action along with our other archetypes. And I'm just showing you that we stress test a lot of our tools with artists to be able to make these kind of quick shorts. But what I will say is that we cannot cover all archetypes. You might come to us and say, I need a bird, I need a fish, I need a person that walks like a zombie, I need someone that walks like a soldier, and I want to have all that level of control. We're going to continue to produce some archetypes that will be out of the box, free for you to use with the trained data that we provided. But we want to start giving you guys the keys to the black box of the machine learning algorithm here. So the idea here is that we want to bring you a bring your own data framework. So if you want to go out and collect your own data, tag it with actions, you can then feed that and train the model weights, and then you can use your own styles as you see fit. And this is really key because, again, we take data very seriously. All the compute happens on your device. There's no cloud compute. We are not taking data. We are not looking at that data. It's all on your local machine. So we see this as a pretty important part for at least, again, these North American and European filmmakers that they want that data provenance, they want to be able to protect their art and their craft, and we're trying to give them tools to do that. Here's a couple of artists trying to use that bring your own data framework to be able to get, let's say, a soldier to run or to get a zombie walk. They had done basically their own animation blocking, making their own styles from scratch in 2 little motion capture volumes that we have in our technology centers. And that proved to be pretty effective. So we're starting to see the ability to train styles getting easier and easier. So if you have questions on that, I'll take them at the end, but I will jump into Flow Studio. Flow Studio is a relatively new product for Autodesk. It came as an acquisition 2 years ago from Wonder Dynamics. And basically I have this at the booth downstairs if you want to talk about it more, but it does a variety of things, leaning more on the creator or novice user. What you're seeing here is its ability to take live action film and supplant that or replace the character in CG. And here, if you're following it, it is a live action video that is populating a CG environment. So there's a lot of different features that are going on here. In our case, a lot of the models are also our own and they're running in the background. Here it's just showing you that it doesn't have to be just for locomotion or motion. It is for facial capture. And here you're seeing all the different plates that go behind the scenes. So it is taking a character, doing that markerless motion capture, and then starting to layer it back together. 4 weeks ago, we released something called Wonder 3D, which allows you to make text or image to 3D assets. This basically just allows you to fill or populate your scenes with assets that you think might help initial animatics come to life. And I think there might be one more piece in this sizzle video, but if not, I'll have a dramatic pause. No, there's not. What I will say is that Flow will continue to grow. These are right now the 6 core features that we have in the tool. It's strongest in what is called the AI motion capture. So being able to derive motion capture and rigged characters from video. And the purpose of that is to give you live action to CG. So I have myself acting, and then I want to change me into a robot. You also saw that video to 3D scene. A lot of people haven't really tried that yet, but it basically takes a video and then makes a 3D world on your behalf in 3D that can be pumped out into like Blender or Unreal or any of the other integrations you might want. And then, as I mentioned, the 3D asset generation is fairly new for us. We also just announced last week that we acquired Radical. If you don't know who Radical is, they've been a fairly big leader in the space of markerless motion capture. This is just them, their last sizzle video before we announced the acquisition. Basically, it is to continue to allow people to act or make films using themselves as the subject matter. So if you want to be able to, it's easier to act something out by using your body. We want to let people do that. Because we're finding that if we're only prompting or only imaging, we're finding that there's a limitation to what creativity can actually unlock. And so using yourself as an actor is quite powerful. So next I'll mention Atelier. Atelier is very much a research prototype and project. It's not product. We're not sure if it will be. But we see it as this really interesting tool called a proto-sampling canvas. Now you're probably going to say, what the hell is a proto-sampling canvas? Proto-sampling is really just a mixture of these two worlds. It is prototyping and it is sampling. I'm sure we've all done this before in our creative process where we've sampled ideas into a mood board or a Miro board or something, anywhere, Pinterest, and then you start to riff on that. And so we're trying to close that gap between I'm riffing and understanding something and getting inspired to being able to actually work with that medium. And so that is exactly what Atelier is. It is this canvas specifically for proto-sampling. And it's very much a media-first collection, generation, and remixing environment. And I'll just walk through some of what it does. It was just published at CHI, so if you want to learn more, the paper is now published and you're welcome to dig into it in more detail. But what you're looking at here is a little video of how the tool actually works. You're able to scour and collect and build little libraries of images, bring it into a board, maybe do some sketching, maybe start to remix it, turning it into a 3D model, turning it into different art assets, being able to tweak it and twist it and say, you know what, I want to turn someone the other way, or make these different features as you go. So again, I'm just double downing here on this creative process, the idea that sampling is very much part of that creative endeavor. As mentioned by Sawyer in a 2010 paper, that there's a spectrum of being able to look in the world and then to be able to prototype in that world. And we're just trying to flatten that space with this particular research experiment. So I will mention that what is powering Atelier is these ideas of easels. You can think of easels as these little micro workstations that allow you to do manipulation of media and graphics as you go. I'll show you one of them in a second, but basically in this case the paint easel, it allows you to take images or graphics in and then basically spit it out. The way that it works under the hood is that we're basically just trying to simplify Comfy UI, which we're seeing as a growing industry and professional tool. But we're seeing that while it's very popular for professionals, we're seeing that it's very not accessible for creatives, because no one wants to stare at spaghetti strings all day and try to figure out why it's not working. So what we're trying to do is boil down some of that and make some of our own custom nodes in Python scripts, and then roll it all up into these simple easel UIs, so that you don't have to worry about sliding and picking the right model and doing all these things, and then only to see that your little workflow broke. So here it basically bundles it up, rolls it all up, and makes it into simpler and filmmaking-friendly language and tool sets. And so here's an example of how Paint might work, still giving you all that control, just in a simplified manner. So here you're seeing somebody being able to pull in images, dial down their intensity or complexity, and being able to then generate, or in this case, modify what an image can be, separating its background, animating it, etc. Now we see this tool very much in the ideation phase. This is not about making a feature film from this. This is about pre-production. This is about being able to get your ideas, get your concepts out, and then be able to start moving into a traditional production pipeline. As a canvas, we really find it important to be able to highlight where you spend a lot of time, telling you where a lot of tools and emphasis is going. So here's just some hot spots of where maybe your brain found it to be the most compelling, so that when you go back to your board and you share it with somebody, you can say, look, I've spent a lot of time here, and now we can talk about how to go from art to art direction and to go into production from pre-production. Finally, I'll talk about story arc. So story arc, again, is that very upstream tool set, going from essentially script down to quick animatics and scenes. So if we reference that Pixar graphic again, up at the top there was idea, story, script writing, etc. And you can kind of see already that even Pixar finds this process not necessarily super linear. And there's a high desire to be able to go back and forward. So even if we were to lay these steps out linearly, there is a strong desire to be able to leapfrog each of these separate steps and go back without breaking the flow. And so for us, that has been a really hard challenge, to be able to provide a pre-production environment tool or workflow that allows you to go from script to scene, and if you change something in your scene, it will roll up and affect your script. So last year we started innovating in each of these separate buckets. in isolation just to see where AI could supplant or augment each of these different steps. And we thought, it's great that we have all these little prototypes, but now we really want to string them together into something that somebody can use. And so that is what we call story arc. Not all of those prototypes made it off the cutting floor, but we were able to get a few of them in. And so it all starts, this is a quick synopsis going from a script. This is written in a simple kind of like waterfall system, and it's able to translate the script into a 3D scene from a 2D floor plan with a set of actions for your characters that you're able to scrub over time, and then you're able to edit it as you go. Now, of course, this looks like it could be very simple, and script writing is not simple. And so we have other tools that could help that along the way, because starting from a script, at least for like non-filmmakers, could be really hard. Or if you're a small department, you may not have that flexibility. So there's another tool that we have powering the script writing behind this engine called What If, that allows you to write a story like a branched narrative. So you can start with a little idea and then start to branch and see what the repercussions are of that choice. Then you can see the pros and the cons, and it gives you metrics of how the story might be progressing. Like, my character is really sad and is staying sad. I need to have an arc where he hits a certain peak of happiness along the way. So we're trying to think about the ways that stories are actually crafted and how we can give tools back to that process. This is basically just showing you a video of how you can then, once you have made your story, you can then leverage AI if you want. If you don't have to. But if you want to help it fill in some blocks, like, my dialogue really sucked in that one section. I wish I could just zhuzh it up a little bit. So this allows you to call on some of those microservices and LLM calls to give you that power. Next is to be able to get into a scene. So once you have set up a script, it's like, great, how do I start to now lay it out? So this basically allows you to go, we have a particular process right now of being able to go from image to 2D floor plan. So that basically gives you a quick, dirty look and feel of what the scene might be like. And then to be able to generate floor plans where you can say, I want my character to move here and here, almost like the way someone would lay out a stage. You can quickly then populate it in 3D. Right now, it's a super thin sliced prototype, so there's not very many models that we have in here. But it allows you to create a 3D environment super quickly and play it out. This is just showing the different styles that we support in the background. A lot of OpenAI and Google Nano Banana in the background for us. And then again, just to be able to simulate what that looks like and create cameras from it. So here, just seeing what the characters are doing. We have a technique right now to be able to give choices to the actors. So powering them with LLMs to say, you know what, as an actor, I actually think I should be moving around this character instead, or my dialogue should be extended. So we're trying to give room for both control and surprise at the same time. And then, of course, this all looks kind of rough and blocky, and like other workflows, the idea here is that you can take this super rough but very easily editable content. So this very rough-looking 3D models here, it looks like it's from Nintendo 64. And then you can start to layer on generative video to give you slightly better feeling of that animatic. And again, the idea here is to go to animatics. It's not to go to full production. It's only afterwards where you're maybe able to get in some detailed motion, again, leveraging different models. In this case, we are experimenting with Seedance as well, just to see how you can take rough blocks and give it the finesse to give you that look and feel. And of course, interoperability is a huge deal for us. So the idea is that as you start to build your story in this web native tool that you can take anywhere, If you wanted to be able to port it over into something that gives you more control, you can do that via USD or ME files. So I'm going to pause here to see if anyone has questions. But on that last prototype, there is a call to action for anybody who would maybe want to experiment with going from script to scene, because our tools will become a little bit more mature and less brittle at the time of June, maybe July, and we'd be looking for some filmmakers to try this out with. So I'll leave it here and just see if there's any questions. Got one already.
Thank you. Tom Lowe here. I think at the beginning you said that this would all be done, the calculations would be done all on our computers instead of where you are. So that would be the limiting factor as far as speed of rendering and all that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, so I want to be really careful with what I say here because, again, we have two different approaches happening simultaneously. We have solution number one, which is giving people calculations and all the neural network on their local device. And that's what we're doing when we're working with our professional tools, because customers are telling us that they need that data provenance. And so in the motion space, many of our solutions are for that. But we do have cloud compute happening in the background for Flow Studios, so that is where calculations are happening elsewhere, and speed would not be a throttle. I will say, though, that these motion models are fairly small, and we're deliberately making the models as small as they can be. So to give you an idea, even though we collected maybe like 2 hours worth of data between dog and human here, we really only needed to give our neural network 10 minutes worth of motion for it to be able to start to predict the way that it needed to go. So that is kind of a bit of our benchmark right now. We're trying to get to, like, if you can get 10 minutes worth of data that is tagged, you can train your own model. Great question.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for your presentation. It's very stunning. It actually surprised me because I've been using your products for a bit while, because I'm a student from architecture. And my question is,
yeah, I'm also a former architect.
Oh, that's great, because
I've been using a room full of former architects. Go on.
Maybe. And my question is it possible for you guys to form a detailed 3D environment, like not just a model or a character, but a whole environment where we can explore?
Great question. So, I mean, we right now in this particular experiment, the one that we used for story arc, let me just get to that point. The biggest room that we can make in this really rough environment setting right now is maybe like 4 times the size of this room. It will get richer, but it is making it from an image. So this is one technique that we have. We have other techniques in our architectural and engineering construction department that is working exactly on that thing. So if you're looking for tools that help with layout and interiors, the place where you'll see most of those innovations land is a tool called Forma. And Forma will start having machine-learned floor plan generation and interior generation. I will also say that Autodesk just invested, along with like NVIDIA and a few others, into World Labs. And if you have not heard of World Labs, it basically creates 3D Gaussian splat environments. It's not like super rocket science. It's basically just a 3D image or a 360 image that is then transferred into a Gaussian splat. But that is one way that we're trying to keep on top of the ball by at least sponsoring and supporting people that are pushing that boundary. Because yeah, environments and atmospheres next.
Thank you.
Just one more comment, like World Lab is founded by Professor Li Feifei, who is the professor at Stanford University and called the mother of AI. She created the ImageNet and also pushing the computer vision all the way through. And she's focusing a lot on because there's a debate between LLM or word model, because some researchers think that like the language is the very important thing, like a large language model, ChatGPT, this is how we can achieve AGI. But on the other side, some researchers think that only language is not enough. We need, because the world is 3D, and we need especially for like robots, the embodied intelligence, it's very important to bring the real world into artificial intelligence field. Yeah.
Preach, Jan, preach. Yes. We need to get past language as the only way that we interact with artificial intelligence. So I'm glad, yes, there needs to be two sides of the same coin here. And world environments and embodied AI are coming next, and should be on our radar collectively.
Any more questions? We can take one or two more. Okay, if not, yeah. At Autodesk, they have a booth on the first floor, and Matthew was demoing a lot of very amazing. Oh, there's a question. Oh, perfect. Yeah, so we can also join the demo like after the events.
Thank you very much. It's really inspiring to hear the flow, the workflow of software. I'm curious about when you talk about urban, as you talk about worldwide, it's more about vector-based or pixel-based learning. You know, as we know, what really created for worldwide is basically scanning and kind of learning based on like image, but those images are pixel based. What about vector based? It's about the motion tracking you did.
Yeah, if I'm understanding, I think it sounds like there's a concern which is like, hey, we can represent the world through pixels or voxels or splations and clouds, but like, is that really representative of the real world? And that is actually a topic that we are actively wanting to engage World Labs in. So we have a lot of knowledge and data on our side from designing and building the world around us, from buildings to cars to fabrication tools to almost anything. And so the idea is, can we work together to make World Labs more grounded in reality? So I think that like your question is right, like is pixels or voxels the only way to represent the world? I think the answer is no on its own. We're going to need to embody more intelligence in that representation.
Okay. Actually, I have one last question.
Sure.
Because it's very inspiring. Did you mention vector?
Oh, vector.
Yeah, because as we know, like AutoCAD, those kind of drawings, especially in the engineering and architectural world, it's very accurate. They're all vectors rather than pixels. But what we are training right now on image, or I think Gaussian slash, it's pretty hard to make it very accurate drawing, right? So in how Autodesk solving this problem, do you have any like resolutions about like create accurate drawings or accurate models based on what we have right now in the AI?
Yeah, so we can go really deep into this, but I might not be able to have all the time. But there are like two different approaches. One is that you would use pixels or soft representation to get ideas out quickly, and then you need to translate what is made from pixel-based into vector. So we have translators on the end of that to be able to turn it into something useful. But we're also trying to understand, can you make foundation models from geometry itself? So starting from accuracy first, can you start to make a generative model? So we have two different approaches, and we're going to continue with both approaches because I don't think that one is thus far winning. We just need to see which has resonance with customers for different purposes. Some people will want precision, and some people will want the fuzziness and then translate it. It just depends on what the application is. I don't think there's one form of AI that will win.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Thank you, Matthew, for the amazing presentation on Autodesk Media and Entertainment.